right, let's kick off, eh? Thank you so much for jumping on, and hopefully everyone's sitting there maybe has grabbed some lunch to sit down and listen to myself, Scott and Tano talk today about work-life balance in the digital age, what we can do to use the right tools to maximize productivity. What's going to say, so let's kick off. On the right hand side we've got a chat. Would love you to put in some messaging. We'll look at that at the end of the 1 hour session, and spend about 15 minutes and answer all of those Q&A that are coming through. We want this to be a really interactive hour for everybody, and fun, and to get to know us, and we want to get to know you as well. What I thought I'd start off by doing is handing it over to Scott, just to do a bit of an intro of himself. First of all, I just wanted to ask Scott, have you got your phone sitting beside your screen there?
Of course I do. Of course, yes.
I think just like everybody else here, we've got multiple screens going on, and it'll be really interesting to see if there's more people that have got that as well. So it would be awesome to have a phone-free webinar. If
not
possible.
Fully, because we need it a little bit.
A little bit. Scott, do you want to do a bit of an intro?
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. And hi, everyone. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. I'm Scott. I'm with Checkmate. Checkmate, we are an automation tool used by recruiters and HR to streamline pre-employment screening. I really appreciate the invitation to be part of this. I think it's a really topical subject for what's going on right now, I think, in the world. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to about this subject recently certainly agree. I think technology does so much for our world, so many benefits in that, but I think there's also that quite a blurry line between work and technology and life, family, friends, all that as well. And I thought, when I was invited to participate, I thought I can certainly learn a lot about this, and to be honest, my wife was very excited for me to participate in a webinar about how to manage tech life, work and tech life. So I think there's a lot to gain. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Tino for joining us. Really looking forward to learning more, maybe sharing some of my own experiences and what I've kind of learned and what I've found interesting throughout the process. But yeah, like I said, I hope everyone gets something out of it. I think it's an interesting subject. Yeah, for sure. Thanks guys.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Scott. Now, I just sort of forgot to mention there, we are recording the webinar. So if you've missed the first sort of five minutes of this, you can come back and have another look. And I thought, let's just start, get straight into it. Tano's going to go through. He's our amazing Tech Life Balance speaker. He's spoken to News Hub staff down in New Zealand, and I've had the privilege of listening to him talk in person as well before, and I've taken a lot of hacks away, and I've started to think more about that balance between tech and life with family and all that sort of thing, and actually been able to help my growing tweenies at home with their phone habits. What's going to say, let me leave it over to you, Tano, to introduce yourself, and let's get going.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all. I'm also super happy to be here with you guys and talk about this big passion of mine, tech life balance. Great, Rebecca, to hear that you've implemented some of those things. Happy to hear more about that later. And like Rebecca said, I just want to reiterate that we want this to be an interactive webinar, and we've all been to these webinars where we listen in and we sit and do something else, and we have the audio in one ear and work or do some emails or something. And, you know, that's fine from one perspective, but that's also a bit of what we're going to talk about today. So before introducing myself further, we'd just like to ask you for one thing, and that's for your full attention these coming 60 minutes. And you can see it, I always do this. in these sessions, and you can see it as a bit of an experiment, because when's the last time you spent 60 minutes focused on one task? And we're going to touch on multitasking and task switching and all this. So try to give yourself that challenge to focus on this for the next 60 minutes. If you do drift off, and you will, everyone does, just try to notice it and bring your attention back. If you want, use the chat and write what happens. I often do this as well. And my favorite story is one man who wrote in the chat 10 minutes in or so, I just found myself on Instagram and I have no idea how I got there. But now I'm back. Because that's what happens, right? When we sit with emails or family or something, and then, something pops up. Cool. So that's your first challenge. And if technology is with us, because like Scott said, we are really dependent on technology. Can you see my screen there? All right.
Yep.
Cool. Because we are really dependent on technology, and it's about how can we get the most of it out and use it on our terms. And that's a bit what I'm going to talk about. Share some research, some hacks. I'm going to challenge you. So do keep your phone nearby, but try not to use it until I say so. And then also, obviously, Rebecca, Scott, and I are going to discuss this topic. I'm in Sweden currently. I'm from Sweden, but have lived in New Zealand the last 3 years, and back here now to reconnect with family for a while. I lived in Auckland. Have two boys. That's from, some of you might recognize, Lake Tekapo. Love it down there. I've got a master's degree in engineering and management, and I do research with AUT as well. In the last 10 years, I've spent in the technology sector in a number of different roles and areas, from renewable energy, management consulting, IT healthcare, software automation, always working with how can technology be used to benefit us and make things better, make things easier. And then a couple of years ago, I started to notice these things, the toll it's taking as well. We have all these amazing tools, but then I started seeing, oh, wait a minute, parents looking at their phones instead of their kids, or my team at the IT company constantly checking the phone, going back to work, and affecting their productivity, my own sleep, checking the phone at night. So I started off by starting Phone Free Day a few years ago, which I hope some of you have heard of, and like Rebecca said, been quite good sort of interest in that from both media and people. And now I speak and run workshops on tech-life balance and how we can shift our thinking both to stay focused, healthy, and affect our well-being as well. So that's me. If you have any questions, write them in the chat, like Rebecca said, and we'll get back to those. So two terms we're going to talk about is tech-life balance and digital well-being. So I just thought I'd really quickly just introduce those so we're on the same platform. And tech-life balance can be described as using technology in a way that doesn't have a negative effect on your personal life or relationship with others. And when I read this, for me, all these examples come up when I have used it in a way that does have a negative effect. So we have these amazing tools, but then it's like, okay, if we get an email on a weekend in the phone, it does have a negative effect on my personal life and relationships. All these different examples. So that's sort of what we're trying to think about. Digital well-being is the effect. So I think it's sort of self-explanatory, the impact that these technologies and digital services have on our health from a number of different perspectives. So I'm going to share some brief research, and I think what's important to mention here is that these tools and technologies are quite new still. The smartphone is 14 or so years old since, not really, but since the iPhone, since it became popular, it's just close to 15 years. And innovation and digital transformation has really taken off in the last 2 decades. So we don't have these long-term studies of the effect. But what I always say is think about how it affects you we don't need studies. We're so, in our age, we're so empirically data driven that we want studies to confirm things. Do you have does research back that? So I encourage you to think about how it affects you. These things that we'll be talking about today, do you recognize yourself or others in some of this? In that case, it's true for you. Scott, you mentioned, you feel like a phone addict. If you do, that's true for you. So phone addiction isn't recognized fully as an addiction yet. But I always say, if you struggle putting it down, if you struggle leaving home without it, there's something we can work with there and to improve. And this isn't something new. In 1930, a Norwegian Nobel Prize winner said, technology is a useful tool, but a dangerous master. So, that's way back then. And I think that's more true now than ever. And I'm going to share some research quickly. We're not going to dive into this. Also, I want to just point out that this isn't sort of talking about how bad technology is at all. It's the opposite. But we want to acknowledge these effects and then look at, okay, how can we use technology differently, both using it differently and also what technology we use. And Rebecca and Scott, you guys are such good examples of that. So just sort of quickly pointing out a few different things. So switching off from technology, this came up in the pre-survey as well, that I'll share in a minute. A lot of people really struggle to switch off before the pandemic, but also after the pandemic, now that work life has been quite blurred, the lines, and a lot of people working from home, a lot of people do struggle to switch off. Sleep, I mentioned that before, and that's old knowledge. That looking at TV before bed, it's harder to fall asleep. But now, when I was a kid, with this big fat TV, I couldn't really drag that into the bedroom. But now most of us have screens in the bedroom, and it does really affect sleep. As a parent, I find this one quite interesting, that the primary concern for parents is now overuse on social media and screen time. All parents I talk to, including myself, really worry about this. It affects our productivity a lot, which I think it can boost it, don't get me wrong, but it can also really affect it negatively. And one study that I often cite is this one about how long it actually takes to regain focus fully after a distraction, and it's close to 25 minutes. When you're in the flow, you're really productive and focused, and then you get the email, the little box in the right corner, or a Slack message, or a Zoom message, or a Teams message, or any of these multiple channels that we use. And in the end, sort of, it can really affect our life satisfaction over time and mental health if we use these things too much. One of the biggest studies, and one that I find quite interesting, is surprising enough from Google, and that's close to 10,000 people who were interviewed. On the left here, under activity, it's a number of activities that we use devices for, and they're based in order of frequency of the number of participants who do this weekly. So at the top there, checking phone for notifications, it's something that close to 100% of participants do weekly. Whereas on the bottom, learning on educational apps or sites, it's something that close to 0% did every week. And the second vertical line shows the perception, the percentage of participants who think that this has a positive impact on their well-being. And I find this one so fascinating, because if we look at, for example, checking phone for notifications, we all do it every single week, but only around 30% of us thinks that it has a positive impact on our well-being. And same thing with a lot of these, passively scrolling through social media. We do it every week, if not every day, but we know that it's not good for us. And then if we look at the bottom half of these activities instead, the things that we don't do so often, reading news, video calling, reading books on the screens, using health or fitness tools, that's things that a lot of people don't do very often, but they think have a positive impact on our well-being. So the conclusion to me, sort of paradoxical, people often spend more time on activities they believe have a negative impact on their well-being, such as passively scrolling, checking phone for notifications, and less time on activities with positive impact. So that's a bit fascinating, and a lot of people I show this to really recognize it. And when we start thinking about our behavior, it's sort of kind of obvious, but still. So this is just a really quick intro to the research. You guys were asked a question on challenges. These are some of the challenges from research. You were asked a question on challenges in your tech life balance, and I tried to summarize that and sort of pull from the different sentences. So thanks to those who did that. What comes up a lot is notifications, putting down the phone, screen time, kids, FOMO, and then two of the biggest ones, switching off. And then what I found really interesting, and maybe we can go back to this one, Scott and Rebecca, mobile work or flexible work. And what the people wrote in the sentences was, because we can work anywhere, anytime, it's quite hard not to. And I find this one really fascinating. So maybe that's something we can go back to as well. To conclude, the way we're using digital technology right now is not ideal for our health or focus and productivity. I think that's just black and white, good to acknowledge. And now let's move into positive mode. So luckily, there's a lot of things that we can do, and it's quite easy to improve our digital well-being and take life balance. And from this Google study, there's some quite interesting things there as well. Only 1 in 4 people made changes to their technology use to improve their take life balance. But 4 of 5 of those had a positive impact on their overall well-being. And of course, well-being also takes into account focus and productivity. So it really affects us a lot. And for those who didn't see a positive impact, the most common reason was that it was hard to stick with a change. And that's something we'll touch upon as well. My number one advice on this one is to start with small steps for sustainable change. We can't, change everything straight away. Just like with exercise, if we start off New Year's resolution, I'm going to go to the gym for 5 days a week, we fail miserably. And it's just the same with this. It's better to start small and then building on that. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So I now give you permission to take up your phone. Do not do anything else but what we're doing. No social media, no emails. And we're going to start with the first of our 2 challenges, which is managing notifications. And that's it might sound obvious. And I've done this with so many people, and not a lot of people have done it, even though it is super simple. But it's such a good way to take control of your sphere, of your digital environment. So sorry if this might be a bit different on different models of phone and so on. Hopefully you can find it. Otherwise, get in touch afterwards. On an iPhone, you go to settings, notifications, and then you can find on each app, you can toggle notifications on or off. So those of you with iPhone, go ahead and do that now, and turn off. And on Android, similar, you go to settings, apps, and then under each app you can click app notifications and toggle that on or off. Other phones will have similar settings. So we'll take a minute or so to turn some notifications off. You don't need to turn off all of them at all, but find a few that annoy you and turn those off. And while
thank you, Tano. I've just done one that's going to change. I've done one that's going to change my life.
Which one?
The app for the ballet lessons.
Oh.
And all the comms coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't turn off the school app or anything like that, or the Team Taylor and Checkmate app. Yes, no, but the ballet one, Rebecca, is a good example, because we accumulate. A next one we'll talk about that. We accumulate all these apps, and by default they're set to sending notifications, and some of them we really need. You need to know if the ballet lesson is canceled, for example. but you can do that on your own terms. You can use the app. You can, go into the app and find that out. Or maybe, I don't know the ballet app very well, but maybe you can switch off, the chat function, because you don't need to see all these messages. Yeah, I have apps like that as well. My favorite story here was a woman I met at a workshop, and we switched off all these notifications, and her equivalent of your ballet app was the router at home. She lived in a flat, and she had a router app, and it sent her notifications every time a new IP address or someone new connected to it, and she got all these notifications all the time that she just swept away, like I guess you do with a ballet app. And then instead of taking the extra couple of seconds to switch it off, because we're not really in that mindset, we get so much, so we just sort of get away, notification. So we'll move on, but this is a really good way. I encourage you to do this. The next one
I think Tano, it's adding value as well, to work and life, and making sure that you're getting the right information being sent to you.
Totally choosing the information that's being sent to you. The next thing we're gonna do, and don't fall off your chairs, is that we're gonna delete some apps. And I call this a digital spring cleaning, because we have all these different environments in our lives, obviously, a home, a car, work, all these things, and we try to keep them in a reasonably tidy fashion. But what about our digital environment? A lot of people don't think about this, and we accumulate all these apps. The average phone has over 80 apps installed, but we only use 9 of them daily, and monthly 30 of them. So on average, we're sitting with 50 apps that we don't really use. And I call this a digital overweight. So we have, every time you scroll past, you have all these, and some people color code them, some people move them around. We have all these things that we don't use, and they do affect us. I've put in a quote from, some of you will know Marie Kondo, the organizing guru. I've learned to fold my clothes according to her technique. Every single item in your home should either have a purpose or spark joy. And if we can look at our tech life the same way, every single app, if we're on the phone, every single software, if we're on the laptop or sort of bigger IT environment, should have a purpose or spark joy. I think that's a really good analogy. And so let's do this. Delete an app or two, and it can be one that you haven't used in a while, or it can be one that you don't feel adds value to you. So on an iPhone, you hold the app, hold your finger on it for a few seconds, and a menu should come up where you can go remove app, or you can go into settings and delete it that way. And on an Android, possibly you can do the same thing, or again go into settings, apps and notifications, and then under the app you can go uninstall. And you can see this as a permission slip to turn off that ballet notification or delete that app, because a guy in a webinar said you could, and try it out. You can always reinstall it after if you notice that you really miss it, but maybe then you'll use it differently. So please, and I'll do the same, please take a moment to delete a few apps, and then we'll
and add the good ones.
Yeah, totally. We might not do that right now, but totally, that's step 2.
Exactly. I've just deleted an old CRM app, which I'm not using anymore, and I've still got notifications coming up.
Isn't that weird?
There we go.
Doing
a lot more zen.
Westfield Plus, the shopping mall app for free parking, that does send me notifications sometime.
That's exactly what I deleted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't been there for months, and it's just sitting there clogging up my phone.
I'll delete Facebook as well here.
Make it overwhelmed.
Cool. Again, something you can go back to. So now we would like you to share your progress. So if you open a browser either in your phone or on desktop, and go to menti.com, and this will be in the chat as well, menti.com, and then enter the code that's on the screen here, and then you can answer, just answer share, which, and it's anonymous, I should say also. And I'll do the same, we'll do the same as well. Again, hoping that technology gods are with us. And let's see here. Rebecca, Scott, can you see the app's deleted screen?
Yes. Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. Cool. So this is a great way, again, simple way, but something really good to take control of your digital environment. And like Rebecca said, we can circle back to that as well. Deleting those you don't want. Oh, TikTok, Pokemon Go.
Wow.
This is always really interesting. Snapchat. I've been in the Snapchat, deep in the Snapchat darkness. I'm a basketball person, and the basketball highlights on Snapchat, it's so convenient and good, and they just get fed to you, and you just keep clicking, and you're just in there. And that's what they're designed to do, and I think a lot of us know that. So awesome to see you guys taking control on some of this digital environment. Cool. Well done, everyone.
It's quite interesting to see, Tano, as well, what type of apps, if they're you know, in that work, you know, or life, you know, well-being space, if it's a and a lot of the time it's you know, a lot to do with your life life apps instead of work.
Yep, definitely. And often also now, can you see the PowerPoint now? No, okay.
Oh yes, yep.
Often nowadays they you know, the boundaries again have blurred. So WhatsApp, for example, I've talked to a lot of people that used to be strictly private, but then lockdown came and you have these social, you know, work colleague groups on WhatsApp as well. And now all of a sudden you want to check a message from your partner or family, and you have the social work group on WhatsApp. So it can be kind of tricky also drawing those boundaries. A few additional hacks that you can do that I always recommend. We talked about sleep, so charging the phone outside the bedroom. You can get an alarm clock for $9 at the warehouse, or you know, charge it right outside and set the alarm up high and forcing you to get up as well. And also no phone 30 minutes before or after sleeping, which can make a huge difference, and research does support this. Making the phone boring. I don't know if you'll be able to see my screen. Can you see the screen there? I don't know how well that shows. I got my phone at grayscale, so kind of black and white, and have had it for a year and a half or something. And it's amazing how big of a difference that makes. You can try it out. You don't need to do it all the time, but it's something you can try. And also, which some people react at, I took away the super cute background picture of my son. You know, I had a screensaver of my son and the background picture. And then after a while, I was like, but every time I take up the phone and I look at it and I get this warm, fuzzy feeling looking at my son, it's like I'm teaching myself to associate the phone with love almost. And I just got this epiphany and put that away, and you know, I've got other photos of him or stuff like that. So it's interesting how we do that. You know, we yeah. Anyway, phone free.
Wow,
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm definitely going to do that. after this.
Yeah, and
And test that out.
test it out, and it has nothing to do. It might feel harsh, like I deleted my kids, but it's obviously got nothing to do with that. It's almost the opposite, saying, no, this is a tool. I don't need to have my loved ones all the time on it. Can circle back to that one as well. Keen to hear your thoughts on that. Phone-free desk and meeting. So phone-free desk, didn't have that research study here, but the difference in productivity is something like 25% in one study between having the phone next to you on the desk, which a lot of us do, and having it in another room. Because whether you use it or not, subconsciously, it's drawing your attention. It's micro decisions not to use it, and it's also anticipating using it. So it makes a huge difference on our productivity. In meetings, we've all been in meetings trying to talk when someone sits like this, supposedly taking notes, right? And that's, and observing your own and others' behavior. And I am coming to the end of my part, so I'll wrap up with a few habits for everyday life, and also talk a bit about, sort of summarize it up. So we can divide these things up in a lot of different ways, and one way of looking at it is, Rebecca, you mentioned with the app, sort of work and private. So for here, I've divided it into work, relationships, and home, and just have two really simple tech hacks for each area. So the first one at work, which I love, is walking meetings. And whether you're doing an online meeting or an in-person meeting, take it outside, take it walking. I think I might have done this with you once, Rebecca, saying, hey, is it okay if I turn off video? I've been in front of the screen the whole day, I need to get out. And everyone's like, yeah, of course. And sometimes the other person I'm doing it with does it as well. And it's almost like you have a walk, you have Zoom, plug it in your ears and go out for a walk. So good, getting away from the screen, getting exercise. It increases your memory if you instead of just sitting down, all these benefits. Another one, which might feel like, oh, is turning email notifications off. And this is about taking control again, rather than always reacting. It's moving to that proactive state of saying, okay, if something's super urgent, this comes into culture as well, so we need to take that into account. If something's super urgent, someone will call me, right? I don't need to be on top of emails 24/7 every single day. So turning emails notifications off, and then scheduling time for it, going in maybe an hour in the morning, midday, and afternoon. And and people will learn your responsive patterns as well. That's a super powerful one. Moving into relationships, phubbing was the word of the year for Oxford dictionaries 2017, I think, and it means phone snubbing. So snubbing someone in favor of the phone. And again, we've all done that when we're talking to someone and they're like, yep. And it really affects relationships. I've talked to people where it's like bringing relationships to bad places. So be mindful of that when you are talking to someone. Be mindful of what you're doing with your phone. Phones out of sight. Again, default when we go out with someone. I can't remember if I told you off, Rebecca, last time we had a coffee. Put your phone away from the table, because it's default, putting it up there in case someone calls or something, whether we take it or not. But still, like, it's fine to be available if we have kids or urgent things, but like have it somewhere else, only notifications for calls or something. And then lastly, at home, consider passive and active screen time. So not all screen time is equal. If you or your child or anyone else sits an hour scrolling, or if you sit an hour and a half, or move around an hour and a half with a fitness app. And Scott, you mentioned a bit about this. And lastly, discuss and be a role model. So I'll wrap up there a bit. Before doing so, just want to point out that from this Google study, the top 3 things that improved people's overall well-being were deleting certain apps. So you've done that. Great job, everyone. Changing device notifications. You've also done that. So you've taken these first steps. And also reducing time spent on certain apps on the iPhone, on the smartphone. And I think after this, you'll probably be a bit more aware of that. So digital technology is awesome, but it's also affecting us. We've talked about that. We've talked about taking control of distractions, and you've already done that, and summarizing to using technology for my own benefit. I haven't checked the chat, but if there are any questions, we'll do that. Feel free to reach out more if you want to know more about this. I do longer talks about this as well. And now for Scott and Rebecca, let's talk.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Tano, for walking us through that. I feel like I've just freed myself a little bit from some of the tech stuff that was coming through on my phone. I'm going to have a nice afternoon now. I'll continue doing some of the hacks that you've shared there. What's going to say, it's a fun way to address something that's, I think, is affecting us, our mental well-being. And Team Taylor have got an amazing, as a lot of our friends and family of Team Taylor know, we've got a recruitment app which you can get on the go and do actions really quickly and all that sort of thing, as well as Checkmate. I've used Checkmate as a referee before, so I know how easy and fun those type of apps are. And I think that's in my perspective, that's the key, is having tech to be able to that you want to go into, do an action and out again, and carry on, to be able to keep that good state of mind. Because if you've got tech there that is, you feel quite heavy, wanting to go into it, that's where it goes, and then there's layers of technology and apps and all that sort of thing. What was I going to say, Scott? What I had a thought today. I was walking down the road here, and I had my phone in my hand, and I'm trying to be a little bit multitasking, which going between my email inbox and on my phone and the different apps that we've got. Where do we draw the line? If having the work inbox on their phone saves a lot of time, is it okay to keep it? Do you think?
Yeah, well, that is a good question. I think Tina, you mentioned a really good example there in terms of how, as we're all working more remotely and we always have access to more information all the time anywhere, it makes it, like you said, I think your words, it makes it hard not to work when you can always work, if that were the word. So there is, I think the line is certainly getting so much more blurred now, isn't it? Because I guess before, even when it wasn't kind of laptop-based work or phone-based work, when you shut down your computer at 5 o'clock and went home, off you went. And I think now you do take everything with you in your pocket. So yeah, I think it's manageable, I think. And I think these notifications, I think is key. And I've actually, since we first talked about this a couple of weeks, I've actually made some changes, and I did make the notification change, and I've already seen results, and I can absolutely vouch for that. So I was one that would have my phone inside pretty much at all times with notifications turned on, and I would see an email that may not be urgent, may not require attention immediately, but it would always get my attention immediately because I'll see it pop up. So I think that's the way, and the way you've reversed it and said, well, actually, instead of being notified of everything if and when it happens, regardless of its importance, I guess, it was now I decide when I'm ready to. So I can then sit down and then I can go through my emails and I'll attend to the things that are most urgent on my terms. And I think you used a great example there, and I can honestly say I've already learned a hell of a lot there. So going back to it, I think there's certainly, there's pros and cons, isn't there? I think, and there is that balance, because at the end of the day, having access to email, having access to information is so important and makes it all less so efficient, but at the same time, just be in control of it. It's like,
Glad to hear that. Well done, Scott.
I'm learning. I think it's a lifelong journey, I think, isn't it?
Totally. And I'm on that journey as well. And what I want to do is, bring people along on that journey. And I'm not perfect. And like you said, it is a lifelong learning, like with anything. And this is fairly new, and we need to learn how to live with it. Rebecca, before you go on to any further questions, just one sort of additional hack that I forgot that I just did myself here as I went back to the Zoom window. I saw myself talking, you know, the self view. And I always hide self view, which is another super simple and good hack that you can do, because a big part of Zoom fatigue, that was last year's, you know, big word, is seeing our self talk all the time. It's like having a, you know, if you go to a meeting and there would be a mirror in front of you and you would like see yourself all the time. So that's another great thing you can do, hide self view. Supposedly, not fact checked, plastic surgery in the US went through the roof last year because so many people saw themselves all the time and how they looked at the screen. Haven't verified it, but it's a good way of just, I see you two now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a, you know, a good point, because it should be okay to be able to do that, you know, and it's sort of building that other different type of culture after spending so much time online, because we had to, you know, which has been amazing in a lot of ways, where we've been able to do, you know, business, keep on doing business, you know, online, but it gets to a point where we're still human. And it's just the interaction, and yeah, definitely.
And I think, Rebecca, what you said there about it being okay, I think, you know, business leaders need to understand that, you know, the implications of this. And it's not that when Scott turns off email notifications, it's not like you're slacking off or not working, or if we're working from home but not constantly being online on Teams and responsive all the time. Because a lot of people feel, especially working from home, you know, they feel pressure to show that they're working, sending late emails, early emails, responding super quickly. But we need to trust people, you know, move towards output culture rather than time-based culture.
Definitely. You know, I love the old Pomodoro method around, you know, blocking that time and be able to focus on one, you know, task at a time. I mean, I haven't used that for a long time, but I think it's about, you know, time that we went back a little bit and had that balance between, you know, good technology and using some old school methods as well.
Yeah, I'm really keen
to be efficient.
For participants, if anyone wants to share, did you manage to stay focused this full time, or did you drift off? If anyone wants to share, because we all do, and it's not, you know, blaming or judging. It's like being aware of it. It's like meditation, you know. If you notice your mind wandering, just bring your attention back to the breath. It's like no judgment or anything. And same thing with a task. If you mentioned multitasking, Rebecca, which I refer to as task switching, because most of us, it's not multitasking, it's just switching between tasks. And I think for you guys, you know, if we talk about what software we use, not only how do we use technology, but what software, I think if we don't have the right technology, that can also be an issue. We need to switch between different systems and do all this different and try to multitask, whereas instead of like, yeah, making it more streamlined, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah, and one thing on that, just on the kind of, I guess, using the technology, I think there's also how technology can also kind of linger in your head as well, if that makes sense. And one of the points you made earlier, which I really resonated with, Tyner, was you were saying that it takes 26 minutes after a distraction to kind of switch your head out of it. And I can really relate to that. I'm not sure if others who work from home or work in flexible environments where your work and your life are essentially interactive or interconnected because of that. You know, we're now working more remotely and flexibly, and I think that 26 minutes I can definitely relate to, because what I find, and I'm not sure if others might find this as well, is when you can close your computer and all of a sudden you're in the lounge with your family, your mind is still 26 minutes behind, like you said. You're still thinking about what you had. Your email is still running through your head. The meeting you just had, or the Zoom you just had, is still there. So what I've tried to do, and this is probably just a little hack I'll personally try to do, is create like a gap between work and home, even though it is one and the same. And I do that by creating a kind of and I guess when I was working in an office, it was that commute time where you have that time to kind of roll off work and you can kind of unwind, and then you get home and you walk in the door and you're home and you've started fresh. Like that's that time that I guess you miss when work and home are interconnected. And I've started to find an activity that is about half an hour to an hour, which is away from device, away from everything. So I go for a run, or I take the dog for a walk, or I get out of the house. So then I come around, and then I come back half an hour later, and that's the start of my evening. And by that time, that 26-minute distraction has kind of gone. I've kind of gotten over the email or the whatever's happened, and you can kind of start afresh. So that little valley or gap in my kind of day, I've found has really helped me to distance myself from, I guess, work technology, you know, and kind of distance myself as well. So sorry, that was just a random little
that's really
show out there.
Really good, really good. Can I add two things to that? One, what you're talking about, there's a term for it, and it's attention residue. And it's on spot with what you're saying, that, you know, you're doing something, and then when you move to something else, it's still there. So it's exactly what you're saying, and it's, you know, it happens to it's a thing. And also with a commute, I think, I mean, what you're doing, Scott, is really good. And you said you've done it for a few weeks, and it's been quite impactful. And you mentioned when we did have a commute, which some people, you know, still do, and especially in New Zealand. What I find really interesting and important there is to think about how we use that time. And you said it's a great gap and time to, you know, get started in the morning or wind down in the afternoon. And I used to take the bus from Northcote Point into town in Auckland, and 9 out of 10 or more would sit on the phone passively scrolling. And that's not a great way to start your day, because it's not relaxation, it's stimulation. Or even if you're, you know, checking work emails, depending on how you do it, it can be reactive, and you start your day on someone else's agenda. You know, you open up the phone, maybe even first thing in the morning, and then you're like, oh yeah, I need to do that. And you start by your attention and time being grabbed away, rather than, you know, saying, okay, this bus ride, I'm going to write that email that I haven't done in so long, or make a to-do list, or maybe it is checking the emails, but on your terms, or reading, you know, being intentional, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. With all the new apps and tech that constantly, you know, are introduced to us, how can we determine which or how many or you know, which are harmful to our lives? I think, you know, I remember 20 years ago sitting, you know, when I first got my first, you know, 15 smartphone, and, you know, there was actually, would be talking about, oh, which apps are we going to be, what app are you downloading, up in, you know, in Sweden when I was living up there. And now, you know, it's actually stopped a little bit, you know, and it's more, I've got the apps that I've got, you know, and finding those apps that are really more, you know, that are going to help me in my daily life. I think that's sort of a, you know, whether it be work, you know, to be able to keep on the go with, you know, if I'm trying to balance that flexibility, you know, with picking up kids and working, and so I think it's interesting to see how to make sure we're using the apps in the right way. I don't know. It'll be interesting to compare sometimes, you know, with other people as well, what apps they're using and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, there are definitely some interesting stats. Sorry, I just going to Tyler. Like like, I mean, it was interesting what you said about having 80 apps and only, what was it, 7 or 8 of them you use daily. I think that I can definitely agree with that. I guess there's a few you use on the odd occasion, but yeah, you're right. I don't know how you can go through that. I guess like we just did, do a cleanup, do a tidy up, maybe every month, do a tidy up or something like that. Like, but yeah, no, there is, you overloaded. Everything's got an app nowadays.
And it used to be, like you said, Rebecca, used to be something we were kind of, you know, it was a conscious decision, and we compared things and so on, and now we just sort of, you know, it's so easy also now, you know, technology has made it easier as well.
And you know, I can just see here there's a question coming through here, how often should I do a tidy up, you know, and I think having that notification coming up would be productive, to be able to go in and say, okay, you know, I've got maximum 10 apps, you know, between work and life, and just get rid of all the other ones. You know, I know that I've got apps that I use all the time, but then I've got apps that my kids are downloading gaming, you know, apps, and I don't want them there. So that they should be gone. And it's, yeah, I think it would be good to maybe put in, you know, once every couple of weeks.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean that's using, again, using technology for our benefit. If this is something we want to do, you know, just like having a reminder to put out the garbage bin every second Wednesday, using technology to improve how we use technology, I think is brilliant. So, you know, having a calendar, putting 10 minutes in the calendar every month to go check your apps, and then you do what we just did, but a bit more thorough. I think something like that is pretty good.
Cool. We've got around about 5 more minutes before we sort of round off. Is there any more questions that anybody wants to jump in and ask? Well, we've got Tano on the line, our expert in tech life balance.
I might just share a little anecdote for you, which I thought would be kind of maybe topical, and maybe you might find a little bit humorous as well. Hopefully, that I thought of, and it happened the other night when I was thinking about this webinar. But I've got an 18-month-old boy, and he is at that age, and I'm sure those with kids might know at this age, where they kind of quite like music, and he's recognised that we've got a speaker that is connected to my phone. And so he knows whenever I'm on my phone, he normally thinks that means music is coming, and that means it's time to have a dance and be a dork and play around. But he's caught me a few times when that wasn't my intention, and I was actually just quickly looking at an email or doing some work on my phone. But he's standing there out of the corner of my eye holding the speaker, getting ready to do a dance. So it's kind of been this funny occasion where a few times I've meant to just quickly pop an email or send a message to a team member and say, yep, cool, got to do it. And it's turned into me having to have a dance. Well, not having, sorry, and then being a dork and having a little dance with my boy. So I thought that was just a little funny example. It happened the other night, and it's happened a couple of times actually, where it's kind of work and family. It has actually come together in a way that I'm not proud of, but it was actually quite a funny little, you know, there's that association that his little mind has that said, Dad's on his phone, it means we're going to have a dance and have some fun. It wasn't the intention, but it turned into the intention. So anyway, I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Scott, what a great, you know, way to call his dad out unintentionally instead of, oh, get off your phone or something. I wish we would do that every time, you know, instead of calling someone out, you're like, let's dance.
Yeah. So that's what I've twisted into. So he's caught me out, and I'm like, all right, it's dance time now. So if anyone's ever received an email from you, you don't know, it might have cost me a dance or two to get that out. So yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd just share. I thought, So
definitely. I think that's the important thing as well is using the right technology to increase you know, positivity as well, you know, and to be able to get in a really good cool. I'm sorry, I'm just reading in the comments a little bit here, and just you know, finding the value in the technology that you're using, and wanting to use it instead of having it just sitting there and not being productive with it. Awesome. Great. So after the webinar here, we're going to be, it's obviously recorded, and we're going to send the recording out with a few tech hacks, I think, Tano, to everybody. And I was going to say, yeah, so we, and even the presentation, possibly, we're going to be sending out just a bit of a, maybe. Part of it.
Part of it, definitely. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, from my wrapping up from my part, you know, awesome to be part of this, and hopefully some of these tips will, it's not a one size fits all for, you know, people listening in. You can take whatever, you know, hacks and things you want and make them your own. This isn't us preaching about this. Also from my perspective, I think, you know, again, going back, how to use technology is one part, but also what technology we use is another part. And having worked with software automation myself, I think it's interesting looking at this, looking at what you guys do from this angle as well, Checkmate and Team Taylor, like how the technology isn't just saving, you know, money and streamlining and making things easier. It's actually also making it easier for the people, you know, using it to have better tech-life balance and so on. So I think that's an interesting way of thinking about when we do introduce new software and things like that.
Definitely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm going back to bed.
Hey Tano
Thank
and Scott, thank you so much for you know, our friends and partners at Team Taylor, and being part of the panel today, and we've had a fun time and learnt some new ways of working with within tech-life balance. Awesome. Everyone have a awesome afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tano. Thanks, Rebecca. It's good to be
Cheers.
part of. Cheers.